Memory is a living entity. Memories, both positive and negative, are embedded in our cellular structure. We live it every day and can influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
And so, as we tell our story, we embrace and integrate the emotions of others, as well as shed our own emotions and our own light. And even as we continue to retell the story, the language that is used will change.
Whatever little you do makes a difference because you put that out there. You're intentional.
Most of our children are taught by people who do not share their cultural memory.
What can be maybe some creative ways for us to be able to capture our story, therefore also our memory, so that we can have more of it. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us in today's episode of the Diaspora Storytelling Series. This is an important series that we'll be doing for a couple of years now, and we are going to continue to do it because it is our call that we are responding to. We are doing this because we believe that it is important for us to continue to honor our story, also because of what we represent, who is before us and who is going to come after us. So right now we have the time to be able to respond to this call. So we're not going to wait for maybe some other person to do it. We are able to do it and we are doing it. So thank you so much for joining us. If it is your first time here, I encourage you to make sure you subscribe to wherever you are finding this information. It's available in video, but it's also available also in different social media platforms on YouTube, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, because later we repurpose the content so that it can be available to different people. And one time we were doing it live, but we had some challenges, so now we are doing it recorded. But of course, all the information are out there for whoever want to be able to learn and leverage it for different other purposes. Yeah, Latifa that just joined us. So yeah, so today's conversation is quite an interesting one because we are going to be talking about preserving our memory and heritage. This is a very particular conversation. And of course, Dr. Nengus could have been here because he's an expert on memory. And if you think about memory, you understand that we are basically talking about what we leave behind, how we get here, also upon whose shoulder are we standing on, because it's about not just about our ability to remember in our head, but also to draw out a line of connection, a very large and long one, to understand that we are not alone and we are not lowly. We are in a generation of story. We are in a generation of line that is never broken. So today we are going to be touching on this important point. And of course, you will understand now that this series is dedicated to people of African descent. It helps us to be able to connect to our root wherever we are, and it helps us to be able to, why not, whatever the moment is interesting, we laugh about it. But whenever it's also difficult or challenging, we also reflect together about it, which means again that we are not alone. We are not supposed to be alone. So I'm the host of this episode, like I already said, and most of you already know me, of course. Now, the point that we're going to be considering in today's episode are three. Usually we do have three key points so that it helps us to be able to move around. The first one is the power of storytelling in preserving cultural memory. The second is connected generations, which is passing down heritage. And the third is amplify diaspora voices, which is sharing stories with the world, which is, we are talking about sharing our story, not just story, because our story is important. So we are paying attention to that. We really should pay attention to that. Like Latifa would say, we don't need to complain that they didn't invite us to the table. We can set the table ourselves. So we don't need to wait for anyone. We can do it ourselves. If we can do it, then let's do it. So this is why we are here. And why should you care? Of course, you should care because we're talking about preserving our memory, our heritage, and opening up also spaces for whoever is is out there that is going to be here also. I remember, for example, there was this particular associate professor that I interviewed in the US, originally from Zimbabwe, but is teaching in California. So he was telling me something that is fundamentally important. Of course, I'm going to break it down because it's a much longer conversation and equally quite deep, as it were, talking about the concept of personhood. And he was saying, his name is Dr. Tawanda. He was saying that a person is not just the physical object that is standing. A person is always connected to what I've been before, which is there for your ancestor, your story. And again, guess what? Your memory. And he said, it doesn't end there, just connecting the two parts, before and now. It connects also to the future, what is going to come. So that what we are doing, we are conscious of the fact that the seed that we are sowing today is going to germinate and is going to bear fruit. It doesn't necessarily mean that we will consume that fruit, because we need to understand that we are in a journey. We are in this pool of memory. It's a universal memory, and it's going to be here for a very long time. Just like, for example, sometime we will go and tap into the ancient wisdom. We too, somebody is going to tap into our knowledge, but we must create that knowledge. We must make sure that we sow the seed, because if we don't sow the seed, it will not germinate. And sowing the seed, okay. Now, I want us to understand that everything that we need is here. If you do nothing about it, it's still going to be here. But what we essentially do as human beings, as entity, is that we take the known information, those information that is there, a little bit of water, a little bit of pepper, we mix it together, then we create something new. Which is therefore saying that when we manipulate the information, okay, not in this sense, when we manipulate the element that is available for us, we create something new. That thing that we have created become new. Meaning that it is not really that we are the one that is generating everything. We are just taking the known fact, adding it together and creating something new. So that our ancestors have done the same thing that we are doing. That's why we are remembering them. You see, when Michael S. was alive, he didn't have 3 legs. He had only 2. He was walking around. Sometimes he would be hungry. He goes to the toilet sometime. He have headache sometime. The same is true for Marcus Garvey. The same is true for the Egyptians. What I'm essentially saying that why we remember this individual bigger than lives is because they decide to take the no fat in their time, add it to some other fat, and they created something that is new. Therefore, they build memory. We are remembering them in their memory, in what they have done. That's what we're also doing today. So we are not wasting our time. I want somebody to pay attention to that. We are not wasting our time. We are intentionally deciding to build memory, knowing fully well that we are communicating to those who are going to be here after we are gone. Because we live in a trickle of time, in a trickle of time actually, because we live for a very short time. But if we live well, our memory will be alive for several thousands of years. So this is why we are here, to understand that the question of memory is not something to be taken lightly. It's very important for us. It is very, very important for us. And in case maybe you are here for the first time, you want to learn more about what we are doing. And of course, we have been able to create enormous content. I want to say that again. Enormous content. In aClasses Media, for example, we have over 2,500 articles I just checked it recently. And some of these articles are written by PhD holders. They are written by professors. Of course, they are also written by us. And this article touch about important things. In case you want to learn more, that's why I'm just emphasizing on that. In case you want to learn more about what we are doing, because we are intentionally building our memory. It's not because we couldn't do any other thing. We are deciding that we want to do this. Then you can also check out the Obehi podcast, something that actually cropped up from a research that I started here over 30 years ago, talking about the presence of Africans in Italy. And from there, it expanded. You see, in a list of the people that are going to be talking with us today, you see people are joining from the United Kingdom, people joining from the United States. What we are essentially doing is that we decide to extend the line of communication, saying that we can do this. In the same way, I have done more than 1,000 interviews, which is sitting down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that if you are interested in what we are talking about, there is a lot of information for you to consume. You cannot finish all of them. There is no way you can listen to 1,000 interviews in one day. It is not possible. Of course, you can also reach out to me in case you are interested, if you are in business, because we are not here to waste time. People that are talking to you, I want you to make sure, pause a little while, reach out to their profile. They are available on LinkedIn. They have their own website. They have their own businesses. Reach out to them, patronize them, buy from them. They have booths, they have courses, they have different programs that they are using to help people. They are not jobless people. They are here because they have lived. They are sharing with you their experience. So I'm imploring you, I'm telling you, take the time to patronize them. It is important for us. All right, so I'm going to be leaving the room now. I think the first speaker that we're going to be having today is Reverend Gloria Tinu, who is an ancestral healing coach. Because I want us to take the conversation from that point. Also because she was telling me that she might not stay with us for the whole of the session today. So we want to quickly leverage her this moment that she's here just now to share something about what we're talking about today, the memory. And how that might even relate to the work that she does. She does something very interesting on ancestral healing. So, Sister Gloria, Egbomi, please take it from me.
Yes, Boromi, Obehi, what a wonderful introduction, as always. Greetings to my sisters on the platform here with me. It's always a joy to be here. It really is. And even though I was feeling somewhat poorly today, but my spirit was here. So I thought, let me come in here. The ancestors will hold me for as long as I can. And being in your presence, all of you, I was sure that was going to give me energy too. So my name is Gloria Tinu Gumbadejo. I'm a Nigerian from the Yoruba culture. I'm an ordained minister, an ancestral healing practitioner, a cultural educator and spiritual guide rooted in Yoruba cosmology. And I'm also a writer. I support diaspora communities, especially women, to heal generational trauma, reconnect with ancestral wisdom, and to live with purpose. My work blends indigenous knowledge systems, storytelling, and transpersonal psychology to inspire transformation in individuals and communities. And through my unique approach, I help people remember who they are, reclaim what was lost, and reimagine what is possible spiritually, culturally, and creatively. So I greet you in my language, Alafia, Ekabo, welcome everybody. I greet you not only with my voice, but with the voices of those who stand behind me, in front of me, by my side, the many mothers and fathers and storytellers, the healers, the griots, the ones who were not allowed to speak, and the ones who spoke in code, in prayer, in song, and in silence. And as we gather here once again at this diaspora event, we are stepping into something deeper than a conversation. To me, this is a healing ceremony into recovery. It's a homecoming of voice and soul. And again, this is a very important topic, as everyone that we cover. So what are we talking about? Preserving our memory and heritage. Every time we tell a story from the diaspora that holds dignity, truth, resilience, we restore a thread in the ancestral tapestry. We become co-creators of a narrative that defies invisibility. It defies invisibility because for so long they've tried to make us invisible. They continue to try to make us invisible. Our voices are tried to be stifled. So any way we can get our voices heard again, any way we can make our presence known, to be seen, we are duty bound to do this. And storytelling is one of those ways. In transpersonal psychology, we understand that healing occurs when fragmented parts of the psyche are made whole. And in ancestral healing, we know this wholeness is not just personal, it is lineage based, ceremonial, and relational. In our traditions, storytelling, we know this storytelling, we know to bring wholeness. And if it's not a performance, it is prayer. Storytelling is how we break silence and recover sacred memory. When we speak our truth, our ancestors rise within us. You can feel it. You can feel the energy, the power when we tell our stories. We share our stories. We invite healing across generations when we share our stories. In Yoruba cosmology, memory is not individual. It is collective, spiritual, and sacred. Storytelling is how we remind the world that we existed before borders, before bondage, before shame. But storytelling is also how we repair what colonization and trauma tried to erase. And unfortunately, this is something that is still evident in so many areas, so all parts of the world. Yoruba traditions and cosmology emphasize the interconnectedness of all things, including the living and deceased. We inherit more than just physical traits from our ancestors. We also inherit their experiences, traumas, gifts, and resilience. Memory is a living entity. Memories, both positive and negative, are embedded in our cellular structure. We live it every day and can influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It is imperative and hugely beneficial to actively preserve our heritage and memory, to understand ourselves better, and break free from negative cycles. We must think of our children. They are at risk every day in so many ways. Ancestral trauma is the lingering effects of traumatic experiences from past generations that can manifest in the present. We see it in how a lot of people move around today. You can tell that they're traumatized. And displacement, war, slavery, other forms of oppression, and more recently, the ongoing triggering and activation of this trauma with barely any room to heal can have lasting impacts on families and communities. Trauma can actually be passed down through epigenetic changes, family stories, and behavioral patterns. Recognizing these patterns and actively working to heal them is so important to long lasting good health. I encourage listeners to reflect on your family history, identify patterns, and share stories about your ancestors. Ask family members for for the missing gaps, for the missing information. Healing ancestral trauma can have a profound impact on individuals, their families, and communities. Honor your ancestors, both the positive and negative aspects of their legacy, and integrate them into your own journey. Individual and collective healing is possible by honoring our past and telling our stories. So I'll take a pause there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for that. That is really beautiful. That is why we always like you to be here, because there is always a lot to learn from these experiences. Because, like I said before, we are talking about things that we do. We are talking about things that we are also feeling inside, things that we do every day. So it is important that people pay attention to this, so that as you talk about memory, talk about the power of story, are talking about also the power of interconnectedness. All these are very fundamentally important. And I think we are also living that today. Because right now, we are connecting across borders. Connecting, I'm in Europe, you are in the UK, the other ladies are in the United States. That is, we are connecting. That is essentially what we are doing. And those that are going to be listening to this episode are going to be connected from different parts of the world. So we need to keep on building on this memory. It's not something that needs to be done only for one day. We are going to continuously reinforce and improve on it, add to the collection of this memory that we are building together. We are doing this together, and we need to continue to do this. All right, Dr. Gwendolyn, we have listened to Sister Gloria, who have shared with us from the point of view of our work as an ancestral healing coach and practitioner. Now, what do you say, looking at it from the point of view of your work, talking about the conversation of today, which is memory?
Thank you so much always for this opportunity and the team that you have put together to make us conscious and to help others become conscious of the world that we live in and our world of the past. I'd like to first say that I'm an educator, a reading specialist. I have a PhD in literacy, cognition, and leadership. I have a new book out called Who Says I Can't? It's a 4-year plan to erase the reading gap and achieve proficiency by 4th grade. I would like to start off with, I come before you and those who are listening with a heavy heart, because I know what it means when children are raised as strangers to themselves. And I want to say something personal. Before my mother, I want to show you a picture of my mother, my father, and this was my husband, who is deceased. All of those are deceased. But this is my daughter and my son and my nephew, who are still alive. This is a treasure that I have, and it helps my grandboys recognize who their elders are. And I have tubs of these and also photo albums and all kinds of things, so that once a month they come over and I help them to have the memories that they need about their grandfather, their mother's father, and my mother and father, and my aunts. But the children that I work with as a principal, as a teacher, as a curriculum developer, and also as an international literacy specialist, I see so many children who don't have these opportunities that my grandchildren have. Because I know, and they know who their ancestors are, and they're not strangers. They're not being raised as strangers to themselves. When a child becomes a stranger to their own story, mental illness rises, suicide rises, hopelessness takes root. Mental illness. My sister is the director of social services in Indiana, and she's worked with men who have battered their significant others and women who have battered their significant others, or they have been battered. Last week, a little boy that she knew in kindergarten, first, second, third, he is now 13 years old, and he went with an older boy into a 7-Eleven and killed the clerk. And his mother asked my sister to come to the court and to speak on behalf of him, 13 years old. And they tried him like an adult, and he will be in prison for 50 years. Because of my sister being in the court environment and knowing the judges and attorneys, they listened to her and decided that they would give him another trial. So they're going to have another one. And I'm sure that my sister will be a part of that. I think sometimes we forget that Black people were brought to America not just for our labor, but for our intellect. They knew our genius and they feared it. And still the policies, the silences, and the distractions of this present age continues to minimize our role and devalue our intellect. And this is why we must talk about memory and story and voices, because without them, the soul of a people will die. And I refuse to let the souls of my grandchildren die because of this. And here, I cannot help but hear Aretha Franklin's words. She says, when my soul is in the lost and found, you came along to claim it. But here is our crisis. At this very moment, nobody is going to claim our students. Now, Aretha was talking about a love interest that we had. We're talking about humanity and helping our children claim who they are. Their brilliance is sitting unclaimed in the lost and found boxes of American education. I remember my last year as a principal, we had a lost and found box, and it was always filled with clothes. I mean, designer clothes. This was a high poverty school, but the kids came to school with all the designers that you could think of, and they would leave those clothes, and we would take them class by class to dig into this box to try to find out if they owned any of those things. And believe it or not, no one would say, that's my jacket, or that's my hat, or they wouldn't even say that anything belonged to them. And so it made me think that their brilliance is sitting unclaimed in lost and found boxes of American education. Their culture, their intellect, their fire, all waiting for someone to pick it up and say, this belongs here, this belongs to us. So instead, too many children are left misplaced, misidentified as behavior problems. Right now, my sister said in her school, the first day of school, kids were being sent to the office. Why? It's something about reading that has not been put inside of them that they can't stay in the classrooms. And parents were being called for kindergartners on the first day of school. My sister, who is the director of social services, rode the bus to take a little boy home. And when she got off the bus with the little boy, his mother was standing up there with 5 earrings in her ear, some short shorts, and the grandmother was sitting there with tattoos all over her arm. And the mother said, oh, well, he was just like me when I was in school. That's not acceptable. Behavior problems, mislabeled with disabilities, miseducated by strategies that never reached their thinking. They are brilliant, but brilliance in the lost and found remains invisible until someone claims it. And that's why I made a vow many, many years ago that I would not let their brilliance be found in the lost and found and remain invisible until someone claims it. I've been claiming them for 40-something years, and I'm not ashamed of it because that is my journey. Storytelling is how we claim them. Storytelling is how we rescue them from the box. Storytelling is not entertainment, it is retrieval. It is the act of saying, this child belongs, this mind matters, this story is ours to carry forward. We can't leave it. I can remember telling one little boy, boy, go over there and get your jacket. You know that's your jacket. Why are you afraid of getting it? Are you embarrassed that it's there? Go and get your jacket. And then he walked over there slowly and picked up his jacket out of the lost and found. And the next day, his mother had washed it, I could tell, and he was wearing it. But I had to make him go. So it's like reading. You have to make them, you have to pull it from them because it's like they're afraid to let go of it. Storytelling and memory run like 2 rivers through the heart of our people. They carry us from the village fire to the classroom desk, from our grandmother's kitchen to the pages of our children's books. And I have to tell you, my grandmother was a horrible cook, so I didn't eat very much. I think she had a pie that I really liked, but everything else was not good. But I still have that memory of us because she thought she was the best cook in the whole world. They are how we survived, and they are how we resisted. And if we are wise, they are how we will still rebuild. I mean, just like I said, I can still remember my grandmother's kitchen. I remember my mother's kitchen. I remember my father was an auctioneer. I can remember being out in the country and seeing him doing those things. I've passed all those on to my grandchildren, and they are the wiser for it. So when I speak of the village fire, I'm speaking of that place where our people gathered, where elders told stories and children listened, and memory was passed down through flame and word. Before there were schools, the fire was the classroom. And around that fire, there were stories and memories were our first curriculum. I think schools are full of themselves when they think that kids walk into schools and they are the first curriculum that they ever see. That's not true. They're in homes that are providing a curriculum. We were in church, which provided a curriculum. We were in Bible school when we were growing up. That was part of the curriculum. So we already knew curriculum. Their curriculum was not our first curriculum because our curriculum talked about us. We learned about where we came from and not as slaves growing up. We learned where my mother came from. We learned where my father was a professional baseball player. And so we learned about him. He was a part. His story became our story. And so when I say memory is the map, I mean this memory holds the landmarks of our people, our languages, our songs, our proverbs, our survival. And without memory, we have no record of where we've been. And so that's why the mother came up and said, oh, he's just like me. She would have known better. Don't ever say that. He was just like me. That means that I don't feel that I can be any better. And that's not what she wanted for her child. She misstepped. And that's what my sister told her. But a map alone cannot guide you. That's where a story becomes the compass. Story points us towards meaning, towards direction. Memory says, this is what happened. Story says, this is where we want it to go. And here lies the crisis in education. In our classrooms, we never...
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Gwendolyn. We'll come back to that crisis. That is going to be very important for us to explore.
Okay.
And I want to thank you so much for this time, really, for this beautiful information that you share with us. This is so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So just before I pass the mic to Dr. Marcia, I want to sing a song. I'm not a singer. I don't have any experience in singing. I'm just going to sing the one that I know in my language, in Esa. Of course, okay. I know how to sing a little bit, just that, no, just enough to not get me bored. So there is this song that we used to sing as children. It is like this. Ukweki yaga yaga kweki yaga yaga oi nabo bomede yaga obe yoda de yaga kweki yaga yaga. This is a song that, of course, we were singing as children, playing under the moonlight in Africa. Now, why I sing this song is because there is a deep meaning behind it. When this game it's a song that we sing during game, and the game is you will fold cloth. It basically looks like a ball, actually, so that it can roll on itself. Now, children will sit like this. These are the legs of the children. These are the legs, so that it's sort of clock. No, this is the leg of two persons. This is the leg of the other two persons. They will basically clock it like this. Then we will line up like that to play this game. Now, as we are playing this game, I will hold the legs of the other person. The other person will hold my legs in a very long chain of dance like this. That we will throw the ball in the middle that is formed with cloth. Now, as we sing, we raise it like this. Kweki yaga yaga, kweki yaga. So basically, what is happening there, what I want you to understand, because I could really go deep and deep explaining that. But what it means is saying that it will never fall by my hands. I will never be the reason that it stopped. I will therefore always contribute to the continuation of this journey. Now, what that also means is that as we talk about our story, as we talk about our memory, it should also be seen from that point of view that this is a responsibility, that what have been coming for generation will not end in my time. That everything we have noted this time will not spoil in my time. I will be one of the reasons that this story will continue. That there have been a father, there have been a mother that led to you. You don't want everything to end in your time. You need to contribute to the continuous evolution of the human race, of our society, of our culture, of our good value, of our practices that add value and meaning to who we are. That is the sense of that story, that short song that I sang. That is also coming from what what Dr. Gwendolyn was also talking about, that there is a collective responsibility here. I need to pay attention to that. All right, so I'll pass the mic now to Dr. Matsia. So we are talking about memory today. So
Yes,
what is your take on that?
I want to say good morning, everyone, and to my esteemed colleague, Reverend Gloria, Latifa, Dr. Gwen, and also you. Good to be here today. I have listened intensely to the two colleagues gone before, and I am wondering if we should not allow them to continue. They have started so well, and they have set the groundwork so well. I want to move from that side as a curriculum and instruction specialist, as an educator, and also as an author. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Marcia Thomas. I'm a Christian leadership consultant and life purpose coach. I'm also a best-selling author 6 times. And I am also someone who writes textbooks, literature, language arts textbooks for persons in disadvantaged settings, who I detail their experiences so they see it in a book, they understand it, they solve problems for themselves, and so on. And I also help persons who are completing their dissertation in their master's and doctoral programs to successfully complete in that way. I want to define memory first as a general term for the cognitive function that allows persons to recall what they have experienced, because I feel that memory is very important as it relates to storytelling. The difference, though, between memory as a cognitive function as against cultural memory is that cultural memory is a collective memory that is shared by a group or culture, meaning that it encompasses the shared experiences and the joys and the sorrows, the values and narratives that are passed down through generation. And these memories are really shared or stored in symbolic forms that we call rituals, we call celebrations, we call traditions, and certain aspects of our material culture. I want to go a little more in detail because I believe that our cultural memory, regardless of where we are from, is embedded in our personal interpretation of our experience and how we recollect these experiences and the knowledge as unique individuals and how we translate them into our lives and pass it down, whether orally or traditionally. So, for example, memory plays a very crucial role in how I remember terminologies and symbols in my culture. Nancy means that you're a big general, and anytime a person calls you an Nancy, it's either you're a general or you don't want to pay the debts that you owe, and you are actually doing many things that are outside of the frame. It can also mean that you are cunning. It can also mean that you're a wolf in sheep clothing. It can also mean that you're a dangerous hypocrite. So there are terminologies that we use in our culture, in everybody's different culture, that means different things for different people. There are certain foods that are very symbolic. We have our national dish, for example, and so on. What I really mean is that in our personality and our habits and our routines and our patterns and how we understand the world is dependent on our personal interpretation of our memories. And in the short term, it can be that they persist as trauma, or in the long term, it can be that they persist as trauma. In the short term, it can be that they persist as occurrences that we say is the reason why we believe or act a certain way. Let's look at the collective side of it, that shared culture or experiences or understanding of who we are, which cannot be exchanged, even if there's a personal interpretation that makes us want to reject who we are by virtue of our DNA, by virtue of our looks, by virtue of our ancestry and our birth. Persons give us that cultural memory. They pass it to us because of what they think they know or see about our own culture. So it's not something that we can actually escape, but it is something that can be denied. But cultural memory is really stored and transmitted through our rituals wherever we go, through our traditions, our stories, our monuments, and other cultural artifacts, and even how we associate with others. And it is very persistent because it shapes our understanding of ourselves. And it also brands the history, and it also carries on a legacy. So in that way, it is very dynamic. It's not static because it is constantly interpreted, reinterpreted, and adapted to, and actually carried on as a community of practice where we hold each other accountable, mutually engaged and accountable in each generation. Some persons manage to transmit it very well, and others carried a blurred image of it. But it always involves sanitizing our memories, putting it out in the open for external validation, for observation, for confirmation, for understanding, for knowledge. Through our tangible aspects and our processes, I believe that it is carried forward in three ways. And this is my personal belief. Persons can agree or disagree, but I have proven it enough. And I feel that the three ways that cultural memory is carried is through our language. We speak our own language. We embrace our language. We have the language as cues and also coded language that we ourselves understand, especially when we are in a particular situation or environment. This is what happens in the diaspora, is that different regions of Africa or the Caribbean have different codes of the same language that we use. And we have our private interpretations that mean something because of our individual experience or how we have coded it to suit our personal experience or family. And so the one word which means something generally can now become something very memorable and an artifact that is sacred and divine in our entire culture, as well as in the immediate family or environment or memory of a particular group that makes up the extent. Also, how we tell our stories is also the language that we use to tell our stories. Some of us do not get over our stories, so we tell our stories as victims. We carry that as a cultural heritage. So people see us as always victims. Some of us tell our stories as warriors, and so people see us as resilient and overcomers. Some of us tell our story with so much humor that persons laugh with us, and we tell it with so much emotion or pain, depending on how we are culturally touched or impacted. And so as we tell our story, we embrace and integrate the emotions of others, as well as shed our own emotions and our own light. And even as we continue to retell the story, the language that is used will change if we are recovering, if we are healing, if we are persuading, if we are convincing. How we tell that story is dependent on what must happen at the time, because we are brilliant people and we are we have this survivor instinct because of what we have gone through and where we are placed or choose to place ourselves. The next way that we tell our stories, in my mind, is through our movement. And movement include our celebrations, the things we celebrate, the way we dress, the rituals, our traditions, our cultural displays, what we eat. Those movements are really important. How we carry each other, how we support each other, how we stretch each other, how we judge each other, and what are our expectations is what I call movement. And when we are placed in certain place, that movement becomes more knitted and united because we have to use it as a code for survival. That is how we carry this cultural memory. That is how we cement it, and that is how we prepare and preserve that memory in our children's mind, in our neighbors, in our kingsmen, in our comrades. We move that culture through that type of movement. And that movement can be that we have conferences, we put them in books, we put them in films, and so on. But we carry the story. The language that we use are usually our own. The traditions and rituals are usually our own. The final way that I think we do it is through our behavior. How we act, how we carry ourselves, how we negotiate, how we collaborate, how we communicate, that type of behavior is usually very different when we are dealing with outsiders as against when we are dealing with insiders. And insiders are those persons who share our values, share our traditions and culture, and who we don't have to explain it to. There's a different behavior or communication around those persons that are usually accepted or natural, as against having to explain ourselves to other people. So the behavior also change. All in all, the preservation has to be that we as a group understand that we have with us our story, we carry with us our culture, and it is collective in two ways. It focuses on the characteristics and it focuses on the communication. And if we understand the importance and the sacred duty that we have to promote and to embrace and to deliver and to serve this cultural memory as an everyday occurrence, because it is a part of us. It is our lifestyle. It is not a cloak that we wear. It is not having breakfast. It is who we are. And when we move to embrace it and fully come 360 embrace, others are forced to pay attention, listen to our story, participate in our story, and tell our story correctly. And I'll end there for now.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Mantia. I really appreciate the sharing, the contribution that you make there. I truly appreciate that. Of course, this is a full lecture that we are giving here every now and then, every 14 days that we come here to talk about this Diaspora Storytelling Series. Now, I have a question for Reverend Gloria. If you can take it on, I wanted to see, because there is, I'm really very happy from the contribution of all three of you. These are really very beautiful. These are really very beautiful moments today. Now, I'm trying to see if there is a way we can increase the connection that we have in our story, in our memory, so that we have this fine line that connect everybody together, because that will be the memory that we want to keep. Because Dr. Marcia was saying, it is hardly just about you. It's about us. And I think this should be something that all of us need to understand now, that our survival is not hinged on just an individual. It's a collective responsibility. And it made me want to touch again that story I was sharing before about our children growing up, how we grew up in Esa, the Ikweki Yagae song that I sang, where we sing together saying, it might not, somebody might not understand the intricacies of that simple game. That we are simply saying that I will contribute to our collective existence, that it will not fall by my side, because the ball now is rolling in the middle. We are all trying to make sure that it doesn't fall on my end. Everybody is making sure that we are holding in, we are gradually, little by little, we are contributing to it growing up. This is about us. How do we make this connection in the world that we are living in today? Because this is a globalized world, we want to call it. There is internet, there are distraction, a lot of distraction around us. How do we, despite all of this, some of them are actually designed purposefully to distract us. How do we, despite all of this, still connect, build our memory, and prepare also for the future that is going to come? What do you say, ma'am?
Wow, thank you for that. As you were talking, there were so many different things that were coming to mind. And there isn't just one way. Everybody has to find their way. And whatever, I have a lot of clients who say, what can I do? You know, how am I going to make a difference? And I said, whatever little you do makes a difference, because you put that out there. You're intentional, and all of it comes together. And what comes to my mind right now, because this is what has been very active on my mind over the past couple of weeks, and it's one of those things where I said, if I ever had any doubt that my ancestors were here and they were with me, they were encouraging me, they were supporting me, which I don't have any doubt. But every now and then, you need that affirmation, you need those signs that let you know you're on the right track. As a young elder, my memory is not like it used to be. You know that situation where you come out of your bedroom and go into the kitchen, and it's like, what did I come for? Okay. I hear young people say that they go through that, but they have no idea what it's like when you really start getting up in years. And I've told my story of having lost so many family members very early on in my life, and I've lived with constant fear, and that I was going to forget them, that my memory was going to fade. And I've unfortunately, one of my brothers that passed early, he was the custodian of all our photographs, and they just seemed to be lost. And so I had barely any photos, and I kept saying for months and months, asking my ancestors, give me somewhere that I can remember all these wonderful people. Am I just going to forget them? And just out of the blue, one of my brother's daughters went back to Nigeria, and she was rummaging through his things, because his wife had not been able to open them in the 6 years that he's passed. And she unearthed all these photos, and she immediately started sending them to me. I was just, lying in bed, and I saw these things appearing, and I was like, what? And the thing about it, I mean, I wept for so long, just seeing those photographs. And the thing that every picture I saw told a story, my family's story. And I was saying, I can't remember what I did last week, but every picture I saw, which was about like 30 plus years ago, I remember the story. I remember the dress. I remember the shoes. I remember where I was going. And those stories came alive again. And you can't make this stuff up. As I was lying in bed, I was lying in bed for like 6 hours, looking at this. I started sending them to one of my daughters who lives in America. And she immediately said, what, Mom? Guess what I'm doing at this very moment? I'm building a family tree. I'm trying to find, and I was just going to send a message to you to tell me who your grandmother was, who your grandfather. I said, I don't have to tell you. That's a picture of your grandma. That's your great grandmother. I mean, she was my daughter. I don't get to talk to her that, but she was on the phone immediately. Mom, so who is this and who is that? And the stories began. So I mean, you can't make this up, So she is gathering that information for her generation, her children's, and it's such a gift that we've been given, because I say to myself, there's no way I could even begin to tell these stories in any authentic way. And everybody may not have that situation, but that's my situation, and that's what I'm pouring out. And the beauty of it is I posted an article about it, and 3 or 4 days after that, I have friends who had gone to dig up pictures from 20 years ago, and they were posting their pictures, and I thought, this is the interconnectedness, and this is how it goes on. So it's a small thing, you may think, a drop in the ocean, but the ripples, they go far and wide. I don't know if that speaks to the question you asked, Brother Bay, but that's what was on my mind
That is the
to
most
say.
genuine part of it, if it is coming from your mind, and that is so beautiful. But of course, I'm going to ask you another thing just before you relax. And this has to do with the experiences, because we are talking about story. We are talking about the thing that we are supposed to be talking about, which is the story, though. You are sharing your experiences, and that is what we are supposed to be sharing, because it helps people to know that, quoting books and all of that. Okay, now talking about experiences, because of the work that you do, has it ever occurred to you one time or two, or during an event, during your sessions, where it had been revealed, it had become clearer to you the importance of building this memory?
I mean, almost every session I have, there'll be some aspect of it where the person has come to me for ancestral healing work. So immediately that will suggest that there is a need, a desire to make those connections and to build on that. I just started work with a client a couple of days ago, and the thing that this person had said, what they brought in was, they felt that they were being under some kind of attack because everything they did, failed. And they considered themselves an intelligent person, educated, a good person. But they said they were doing work with a particular person. I think they called it a shaman or something. And that this person's energy, they think that person had brought in some negative energy with them, that they had not done ritual cleansing, and they had brought it into their space. So they wanted, and they said this was something that had happened generationally, with their mother, their grandmother, and they see this happening to them. They are now sort of living that again. So I said, okay, you have identified it. So that's the first step. And then we need to make you make those. They're also a Muslim, so there was, because I bring people's faith into the work, because it's all part of it. African cosmology does not, discriminate against any tradition, any faith. We embrace it all. So they started telling me stories about how this particular thing had been manifest in their generations, and how it's now showing up for them. Brother Bay, can you just repeat the question? Because I just found my memory. I'm thinking about this.
It's okay. I think you are really on the part, no? Because we are trying to see how, through your work, through your session, it occurred to you the importance of this connection that we are building, this memory.
Okay,
And I
very
think you
good.
are really pretty fine on
You
the
see what
part.
I told you about entering your elder years? You forget what you say. Yeah. So I just told them to talk about what it is they remember, because they were saying that, since their grandmother had passed, they had forgotten everything. But since this situation had come up, they started remembering about all the things that had happened as a small child, and how there was so much unrest and sadness and pain in the family, which they said they're now feeling within their own body at present. So I just encourage them to continue to talk about what they feel, what they remember. And as she was talking, more and more of that memory was coming back to her. She said that she had forgotten so much about this. So, obviously we've just started the work, and there's a lot of different things that we have to do. And I encourage her to bring in her own religion, because she said this was something that had been preying on her mind too, that her great grandfather would be very, very upset with her because she had not been practicing her religion. And she said she didn't understand the religion. I said, well, you don't have to, but just honoring your grandfather, calling his name, giving homage to him, letting him know that you respect what he's practiced, and it's a part of you. You don't know the part that you are going to, how it's going to show up in your life, but you just want to give homage. And so I said, do that every morning. Start with just that. Speak to your great, because that seems to be the energy right now that is showing up for you. So take some time, because people ask about, how do they go about this and healing. And every day when you wake up, ask your Ori for instruction, ask for guidance, honoring their ancestors, just calling their names. If you don't know their names, just call your ancestors, mention them. If it's prayer, that's part of your practice, by all means do that also. And it's a step by step, and it's different for everybody. But even doing that is also something that goes out into the universe. And that's something I firmly believe, that everything we do, just as there are people who are working day and night negatively, putting that into the universe, and people are feeling it. Same thing, those who are doing positive, those who are doing, healing work, we're putting that out, into the universe. And I'm a strong believer in that. So that's my small contribution.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. That is a field work experience. And it is important to also understand that, because otherwise people think that, okay, we're just talking. No, these people that are speaking to you, they are speaking to you from what they are experiencing. So you better pay attention. You better pay attention. All right, Dr. Gwendolyn. Okay, so you were talking about the crisis before. I don't know if you could expand more on that and move towards what you see as the solution in terms of how do we overcome these challenges of non connecting more to our memory, or not building it more, both within the educational sector or for our children. Could you please expand more on that?
So I think I started off with, here lies the crisis in education. So in our classrooms, we never connect the memory of cultures with the teaching of phonics or comprehension. And that's our major goal. We want kids to learn how to decode words so that they can move those words into sentences and get meaning. So we never connect the meaning of culture with the teaching of phonics or comprehension. We go straight into the curriculum content, and our students are left without context, without understanding the social structures, the governance structure, and the ways of knowing that shapes the very words that they are being asked to decode. Because of this, phonics becomes sound without meaning, and comprehension becomes words without wisdom. And here's what I think is the big aha moment. We have to be realistic, and we have to be truthful about this. Nationally, nearly 80% of teachers are white. And in many districts, the number climbs closer to 8 to 90%. And this means that most of our children are taught by people who do not share their cultural memory. So the question becomes, will this connection between memory and instruction ever happen at scale? And if we're honest, in the current climate of the world, where schools are fighting cultural wars, where diversity itself is under attack, where teachers are already stretched thin, it may never happen the way we imagine. Just look around. In Oklahoma, lawmakers are pushing an America First test to screen teachers' ideology. In Pennsylvania and Iowa, culturally responsive teaching guidelines have been rolled back. In California, teacher training programs on culturally relevant lessons are being defunded. So then what must be the alternative for all of this. The alternative must be grassroots, community-led, and creative. We must train teachers of every background to act as mediators in spite of policy restrictions. We must equip families, community elders, and local storytellers to bring cultural memory into not only classrooms, but we have to move into churches, we have to move into daycares, wherever there are people who understand the direction that we're trying to go into. We've got to pull all of those people to bring memory, cultural memory into classrooms from the ground up. And this is our non-negotiable. So the action call is, do not allow our classrooms or our communities to hand our children a map with no compass. Demand that memory and story remain at the heart of learning, even if policy resists. We will build this ourselves if we must. So that's my solution.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. But I'm sort of wondering if maybe this solution that you propose have some challenges within. If you look around within where you live, you were making mention of Oklahoma before, particularly in your state, or maybe in the social construct. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. You made mention of the fact that there are about 70 to 80 or sometimes even 90% of the teachers there be white, and perhaps maybe they are even teaching Black people. There is a problem there in that they don't share the culture of the people that they are teaching. Perhaps maybe they're even teaching the history. What if this history have to do with where you have been the perpetrator or have been the victim? How do you teach me that kind of story? It becomes complicated. But what I'm suggesting, or actually what I'm asking is there alternative to this learning? Do we have any possibility of maybe organizing some of this learning ourselves, maybe using online environment where the children might not necessarily need to rely on everything that is being offered to them by the state in a closed environment, but they can be open up to learn from also other areas, other sources of information, so they can broaden their horizon and therefore broaden their memory again. What do you say about that?
I think that's what I was saying at the very beginning. We know we cannot depend on the teachers, most of the teachers that are teaching our children. So we have to provide grassroots, and that means getting people within our communities. And that's not saying that we're leaving out people that don't look like us, because there are those who believe in humanity for all people. And so we're going to have a variety of colors if we start at a grassroots stage. And so with that being said, if it's not, I've had for the last 2 years an online program where I've worked with parents who had children a month old to 3 months old and talked about cognition and early literacy. And they come online once a month and I work with them. As a matter of fact, last month I flew to Atlanta, Georgia to meet one of the parents and the child. That he was 3 months when we started the training, and now he's 3 years old and he's reading just like nothing. He's really reading. And so she's now trying to get more parents together to come with me so that once the children reach pre-K and kindergarten, they're already reading. They understand the culture that they're from. So they're prepared. Now, the problem that she's having now is to find another school that he can go to where they're open to him already reading and already knowing his culture, and he's 4 years old. So that grassroots effort is going to have to take place, whether it's online, whether it's face-to-face. We started a charter school many years ago. I'm one of the founders. And we started in the church. We had classes in the church, and we had diversity amongst the teachers because everybody who was there understood the storytelling connection. And we spent the first 90 minutes just reading stories. We had people to come in to do storytelling, the elders who came in to do storytelling, all that was going in. And then we infused the technical studies of phonics and word study. But the kids knew the story first, so they had a background. So we never had kids who did not want to be there. They came every day. We had a bus that picked them up and they came. And then we finally moved to a building. So it can happen, but we have to have those people who are intentional about moving the community. So I'm hoping that I'm answering your questions.
You did. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. All right. So I have a question to Matia, and this is, of course, it's a build up from what you said, Dr. Gwendolyn. Now I'm moving towards what can be maybe some creative ways for us to be able to capture our story, therefore also our memory, so that we can have more of it, or have the make it available also for other people that look like us, or that we might want to serve with this memory and with this story. Because I think this have to do also with what I was saying before, that our intentionality, making sure that those who are going to be here after us have something to hold in their hands to be able to evaluate the world that have been before them. For this to happen, it cannot happen just at random. It cannot happen just because somebody didn't have anything to do, then he do this one. It needs to happen with an intention. So this is where I'm bringing this question to you, Dr. Matia. If there are some creative way that we need to employ or deploy to be able to make sure that this our story, our experiences, our memory are kept for those that are going to be here after us. What do you say about that?
I want to say there is a very admirable proven strategy that I am finding is taking root, and it's really spreading the gospel of cultural memory throughout the entire world, and those are movies. There are some movies that are coming out now, those African movies that have taken root by some wise persons and are making tractions. It's presenting the cultural memory in a way that is enjoyable, that has a theme, that gives a message, and that also puts it together as overcoming and survival and strength and courage, and developing in one's mind a mindset that you believe in yourself, you believe in your culture, you believe in who you are, and you are not ashamed, and you can fit into the sphere of things. So one of the ways that I believe, if I'm to look at it from the language point of view, is telling the story through written documentation, sharing the story through film and through oral traditions, and also preserving the language. The language is preserving these movies. They speak it naturally. They don't try to fit in and buy into the world, and to embrace the language of the world with greater authority than their own language. They are very much out there, and persons are gravitating to learn what this means and what it doesn't mean. There's also a lot of films and a lot of reels and so on where persons are exposing our food and our culture, and why these celebrations, the importance of colors, they are moving along in keeping the idioms and the expressions and norms alive through the creative art of production, clothes production, manuals, journals, movies, as I said, and also the written language as a cultural heritage. The next thing that I find that they are, I think we must do it through our behavior. And many schools in the diaspora promote the culture day and the indigenous lives of the different cultures. We may not want to participate for whatever reason, because some of us become about our culture because we want to fit in. But through our behavior, the preservation has to be done through our traditional celebrations and practices. We want to continue it wherever we are, and we want to keep our ceremonies alive. There's also the social norms as it relates to behavior. and we want to present and preserve the social norms, and we want to value and the values that actually shape who we are and how we want to be represented and how we want to behave and our children to be regardless of where they are immersed. And then we want to always maintain community engagement for behavior because we want to encourage the participation in these events, in carrying this message, in delivering the cultures and the norms, in fitting in and in actually surviving. Let's talk about movement. If we look at movement, we want to keep our dance and our performances alive, whether through entering competitions or creating them for ourselves. We want to make sure that we create festivals and events that celebrate cultural diversity, among them our own diversity, because as I said, different parishes celebrate things a different way, but they are their unique celebrations as a community, as a culture, as a nation, and as a particular parish or stream. And then we want to keep, how would I put it? We want to reframe our body language in the sense that we want to preserve the nonverbal communication styles that are unique to us, that we have coded, that really belongs to us, and are very unique to our specific culture. We want to keep those. We are not to become ashamed of those, and we are not to exchange them for compromise. We are not to form consensus around delivering it up or giving it away or having somebody else misrepresent it. We must claim it and we must own it because we understand who we are, we understand our experiences. We must never give our shoes to anyone or ask anybody, make anybody ask us to tie our shoelace who have not walked in our shoes, who do not know us, has not been a part of our culture or heritage or experience, who have not carried the burdens or the baggage that we carry, and who have no treasures that belong to us. We should never voluntarily release these treasures because it would be like putting gold in a snout or a pig's mouth, according to the Bible. And so we must promote these cultural diversities, but we must become very sensitive and we must secure those boundaries that will retain and celebrate the richness of our own cultural experiences and how it has groomed us and who we are, who it made us become. Because being master of your own destiny is extremely important in preserving, being proud of who we are and how far we have come, making our experiences, the hidden secrets and patterns in our lives that comes from our experiences, gives us lessons for growth and resilience. And we must educate future generations and pass down the culture and the knowledge and the traditions in a way that makes it empowering and makes it enabling and also makes it so unique and sacred that they carry it with a badge of honor, standing up very tall and being the front runners of what really belongs to them, what is their legacy and what is their treasure. I want to congratulate you, Dr. Gwen, on your newest book, and I'd love to read it.
Right, definitely. You have to. First, I want to thank you so much for your contribution there. Is highly valuable. It's highly valuable contribution there. But I was wondering if in what you do, there is anything that you could attach as a solution to the conversation that we have had today in terms of memory building or storytelling, reclaiming our heritage and all of that. How do you connect that to what you do?
Well, I connect my heritage and the emblems and traditions and cultures through my writing in those textbooks. I present those real experiences. I look at those celebrations. I look at what they mean. And I also, in the literacy side of it, the learning of the language, also in the interpretation, the comprehension, and the writing, allow persons, those students or the teachers in those settings, it gives the children scope to actually embrace what is endemic in their specific culture and use it to to embrace and solve their problems while accepting themselves. And so that's part of how I do it. I also become a part, I'm also a part of the cultural traditions. We call it the JDC, where we preserve our ring games and so on, and we have persons competing and presenting it in a setting where persons are rewarded and embraced and nurtured and also supported to carry it forward and to value it in a very particular way. And I also deliver it in journals and also in presentations that I do on YouTube and so on, so that I can educate persons. And in my one-on-one coaching, I find that a lot of times, you see, coaching has to do with experiences, and it has to do with what you know as a person and the power that lies within you. And so as a coach, I listen to the stories. I make persons look at their stories from a very critical level, how these stories shape them and who they become, the choices that they make, and how it shapes their core values and their vision. And I get persons to connect their voice or reconnect their voice, their ambition and their calling with their stories and what it means to them, how it has and will influence their future tasks. And I help them to use these stories to become masters of their own destiny and to reaffirm themselves how far they have come, to give them faith and courage and to do their timelines. And so that is how I integrate it in my work in the different roles that I carry and play.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. Okay, so yeah, we have come to the end of the conversation. Is there anything that any person want to add? Maybe Dr. Gwendolyn, do you want to have the final word here before we leave?
Thank you very much. I think one of the things I wanted to say in storytelling in the classroom, we must go beyond folk tales. And that must be about teaching children how to think through a story. And so there are several things because I was trained by Dr. Feuerstein in Israel on cognitive modifiability, I move into cognitive mediation, where I'm guiding them to see patterns between their story and another story. And then strategic transfer is where I help them to take a lesson from a folktale and apply it to a math problem or a conflict on the playground or a question on a test. And then we finally move into metacognition, giving them the language to say, I know how I arrived at this answer because I can track my thinking. So thinking becomes a major part in what we do. So imagine if every lesson was mediated like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And imagine if children were not just taught to read words, but to hold ideas. That is how literacy instruction becomes a bridge between heritage and future success. So my call to action would be challenge every educator, every parent, every leader. Do not settle for skills without story. Insist that our children are taught not only to read, but to think, to connect, and transfer knowledge across life. So that's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gwendolyn. I appreciate you. I appreciate your contribution here. And of course, also to Dr. Marcia, thank you so much for all the value that you have added here today. And of course, to our listener who have listened to the end of this conversation, we say thank you to you. And we say, extend the conversation on. This is about connection. It is not just about us, not just about you as an individual, but it's about all of us. So we encourage you to share the value that you have learned here with other people. And of course, come around again. Every 40 days, we show up here to share with you important value about storytelling, about the diaspora storytelling, to be precisely how we can use story to be able to improve our life, to be able to become better. Today we were talking about, or we actually spent a lot of time talking about memory and storytelling. And of course, you learn from these important people how what they have prescribed to you as a medicine. So make sure you take advantage of it and make sure you share also the value with other people. So see you next time, 40 days from now.